you do thumbs up? Yeah, I don't know. Okay. Call to order the City of Maplewood Environmental and Natural Resource Commission meeting on Monday, July 17th at 7:02 p.m. And I call the meeting to order. Roll call. Commissioner Brodnix.
Present.
Commissioner Bryant is absent. Commissioner Edwards is absent. Commissioner Gruel, absent. Commissioner Lates?
Here.
Commissioner Miller? Here. Commissioner Redmond?
Here.
All right. Doo-doo. And approval of the agenda. Actually,
move.
you and I were both absent.
For the
Oh,
agenda.
of the agenda, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. Commissioner Redmond makes a motion.
I'll second.
Commissioner Brodnix seconds. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Approval of minutes from June the 22nd, 2023, which we may have to table because two of us were gone. Is that correct, Madam Chair, or Madam Staff?
Yes, why don't we table that till the next meeting?
Okay. Unfinished business, climate mitigation planning.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the commission. So I'll start us off here. As you recall, we started this discussion last month when we're talking about our Gold Leaf pilot project and the two climate actions that the Environmental Commission and the Green Team have chosen to focus on under this Gold Leaf project, one of those being the climate mitigation. And tonight, again, we have Taylor Matheson with us. She is our Gold Leaf intern, we're calling her, a University of Minnesota undergraduate in environmental studies. And she is here tonight to touch on the education and outreach that we're doing this summer for the climate mitigation planning. So she wants to show you some new things and then get your feedback. So welcome, Taylor.
Thank you. Is it supposed to look like that? Okay, so first of all, here's the logo that you guys helped us pick. Try to do the sunglasses like you suggested.
So our communications team came up with this logo for us kind of last minute, so we appreciate their assistance. But it's the tagline that we all voted on, Keep Maplewood Cool. So we have implemented that into our climate mitigation outreach materials, and it looks pretty catchy, so thank you for your assistance with that.
So our outreach plans, the picture on the right is from the Light It Up event on the 4th. It went pretty well. We just realized that it's a little difficult with only one person because we did solar beads to make bracelets, and so the solar beads are white, and then when the sunlight hits them they turn different colors, so it's a really fun activity for the kids to do. And yeah, next we'll go to the July Celebrate Summer.
Oh, I do want to touch on Taylor, who gave up her 4th of July to be here, did a great job. I was here as well, but I was dealing with other things. But, you know, it's always good to have a kids' activity so you can get the kids over and then the parents are kind of standing around looking. So it's good to have a two-person team so you can approach the parents and start talking to them about the climate mitigation planning. But we had our materials with the the QR code for people to do the survey, and looks like we were able to obtain some results to date. So this was our first outreach opportunity. So thanks for attending that, Taylor.
Of course. Yeah. We are also trying to plan to go to National Night Out on August 1st. We are looking into potentially going to a party at a manufactured home park if any are having one, or a church. Some locations we have in mind are Rolling Hills Manufactured Home Park, Town and Country Manufactured Home Park, and Beaver Lake Estates. And we are also looking at, so for those, we are not sure if they're having parties yet, but we reached out and are just trying to touch base there. But these churches, St. Jerome Catholic Church on Roselawn, Lakeview Lutheran Church on County Road C, and Beaver Lake Lutheran Church on Stillwater Avenue are having parties. And we're kind of wondering what you guys think about how we should do our outreach, if we should just pick one or kind of jump around. And then we are also looking for a volunteer to help us out with that because Sean will be absent that week.
So next week, we do have the One Celebrate Summer event, so both Taylor and I will be attending that. It's part of our Park and Recreation events, and this one is held at Afton Heights Park. But we'll send you out a follow-up email on all these outreach opportunities in the event you do want to help out. But I think the big need right now is this National Night Out possibility. And as you know, we worked with those manufactured home parks last year on the Clean Energy for All project, so we did some outreach there. So we have those connections, but we looked on the parties that were registered on our webpage, and to date, those 3 manufactured home parks have not registered their party, but we're waiting to hear back. So your feedback on that outreach on National Night Out would be beneficial.
Okay. I personally, I'm having one at my house, so I can't go anywhere, but you're welcome to come. I think hitting 2 or 3 or 4 of them would be great because they do kind of, it's cool to stay at one, but you really get to meet a lot of people. Everybody's out from that whole time. So that's my opinion. Anybody else have anything?
Yeah, I think my suggestion would be to try to do sampling, and rather than thinking of it as like tabling, maybe take a little business card, a little postcard, a little flyer with a QR code of the survey, and use it as an opportunity to get the word out about the survey and encourage people to take it. The other thing I would throw out is, what if there were a prize, a little bit of money put in to say, hey, if you take the survey, you're automatically entered to win. Here's a couple prizes. Could be $20 or $50 or gift card to Target or whatever, and set it. If you do it in the month of August, there'll be a drawing early September or something like that. If the city's interested, probably that would be willing to be a donation partner to try to help establish something, because I think might be nice to really use these contact times to really amp up the survey taking. The other thing I'll throw out is I don't know if the city's done any paid social media posts, but that can really be effective too, to just get posts out there in front of folks.
Is there also an opportunity for us to download the QR code if we are hosting, so we could have that available at our tables, like on our posters or whatever?
I think that's...
Yeah, we'll get you some materials for your parties.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay. Fantastic. Anybody else have any opinions?
No, I would just agree. I think, getting out to as many as is realistically possible would be a great idea, just so that kind of, in theory, get as many survey points of contact as possible. So I would agree with that sentiment as well.
It might be really helpful to maybe look at a demographic map and see if you can hit some in some different demographics that aren't, not all the same. Just to get some different points of view and stuff would be really cool.
So unfortunately, I'll be out of town, and I'm not sure I want to send Taylor out by herself. So we'll follow up with an email, see if anyone's available to assist. Maybe she can join another city staff member who's going. I do know that many of the departments go out in addition to our police and fire. So
See if you can ride in like the fire truck or something.
yeah, they're always a hit when they show up at the party.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Okay, well, thanks for that feedback.
So, Sean, is it possible that the other departments, any other department that's going out to these, that maybe they could get a little like a kit, like, hey, here's some cards, here's the shtick, if you can just share this information with folks when you're out there, try to help folks become aware of the survey and that sort of thing.
Great idea.
Okay. Other events this summer that I will not be here for are the Rice Larpenteur Summer Block Party and the August Celebrate Summer in Edgerton Park. So,
Taylor's last day with us through this internship is August 11. So these are other opportunities, and I'll let you know about them, and we'll see if we have any volunteers.
and here are some of the survey results. Ted picked 4 of the, I don't know if I'd call them the most important, but
Key,
yeah.
some of the key
yeah.
issues here.
Mhm.
And as you know, Ted Redmond, our commissioner here with Pale Blue Dot, assisted the city with creating the survey, and of course the E&R Commission and the Green Team reviewed and came up with some modifications. But these visuals, I think, are really important. To date we have, 28?
28. I'd call it 28.
Yeah, so this was first released in an article in the August Maplewood Living. City Council member Juneman was talking about our Green Step City program, and then what's the next step, the Gold Leaf project, and here's something we're working on. So it was kind of a mention in there. And then in addition to that, the one outreach opportunity. And then, yes, very good point about social media, which we'll be putting together and putting out, working with our communications team on that as well. So what did we come up for our survey here on these key questions?
So it looks like over half completely agree with the fact that it's important for Maplewood to take action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from energy use or land use. And good chunk agree. So probably good to move forward with the climate action planning from these results here. Another good chunk completely agree with Maplewood should be a leader when it comes to proactively addressing climate change. And then we've got some demographics, so not a lot of people 25 or younger taking it, which will probably be a good thing to use social media to get the word out. It'll get some younger people involved. And then race and ethnicity.
Looks like we're getting some variation which is good, not out of the 26 responses. So very good. Thanks for going over that. And that is it for our climate mitigation planning. We just wanted to give you an update on all of these items. We'll pause for questions.
Anybody have any questions? I actually have, it might be really great to focus on some neighborhoods with some more diverse backgrounds for your survey. And I'm also wondering, we have a really low-key National Night Out this year because it was so hot last year. All we did was we put a sprinkler out for the kids and had like iced tea and like lemonade kind of thing out and bubbles. Like that's all we did because it was just too hot. But I'd be willing to maybe go to a couple other ones because ours are kind of self-run. It's just basically focused in front of our house, but everybody else is kind of doing the stuff, but, I mean, I could help out with one or two other spots.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
We'd appreciate that.
I think you just want to ride the fire truck.
Yeah, I think this is great. I like the summary, and I'm interested to see as we get more responses. I was kind of interested in that almost quarter chunk that disagreed with some of that, and especially as Commissioner Miller mentioned, the demographic relationship that they might have, or how that maybe will interplay with some of the other questions that we asked as well. Just because I think, especially in the education component of, or understanding an education component of this work, understanding that demographic will be important.
Is there, I haven't seen the survey, is there a way for them to say, explain your answer, or feel free to elaborate kind of a thing, or no?
There's a couple open-ended questions,
Okay.
but generally speaking, most of the questions are choose climate action that
Okay.
you would support your city taking, and it kind of is separated into transportation,
Okay.
building, things like that, and then they can choose up to 5 of those.
Okay,
But these were kind of the key starting questions, like,
yeah,
do you think the city should even work on this?
right.
Yeah.
Is there a place for them to suggest or put their opinion, just like, you know?
There's, I believe, 2 questions where it's
Okay.
open-ended.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I don't believe you were here when we reviewed that survey.
No, I didn't, wasn't
Sorry about
here.
that.
No, I'm sorry.
All right,
All right.
well, thank you very much.
And next, we will be talking about the Green Building Code.
All right, I'll start this off. So tonight, we will be reviewing our second climate action that we have chosen to review under the Gold Leaf Pilot Program, and that is our Green Building Code. And you may recall from our last month's presentation that the city of Maplewood actually adopted this code in 2013, and this code has additional energy efficiency strategies and other green building elements for buildings that are constructed with public funds. And so I'll go over some of those buildings that have been constructed under that code since that time. And the Environmental Commission would really like to look at this mainly to see how we can add requirements for electric vehicle charging stations, as well as renewable energy components to the building. So, you know, since they're getting public funds, you know, we'd like to see some approaches above and beyond. And that was the key as to why we wanted to review it. But we also have found since 2013 that there's some challenges with the existing code. So we'd like to, as always, you know, when you open up a code, you want to review it and see if there's any modifications that might be needed based on new technologies and so forth. So to begin, you may recall from last month that Taylor put together a list of cities mainly in the, well, throughout Minnesota, mainly Twin City area, who have existing green building codes and have EV parking requirements. And since that time, she has discovered one more that she wanted to touch on. So I'll turn it over to Taylor.
Great. Yeah, so last time I covered St. Paul, St. Louis Park, Rochester, Duluth, Edina, and Northfield. This time I was going to try to cover Eden Prairie, Minnetonka, and La Crescent, but Eden Prairie and Minnetonka apparently don't have green building codes, which we got some confusing information on that. But La Crescent's requirements is kind of divided by residential versus non-residential, and then broken down by how many units or how many parking spaces there are. So mainly just goes over how they require a certain breaker with the 40 amp service. And these are mainly for enclosed parking spaces. As the number of units increases, they encourage an L3 energized outlet. And then if there are more than 3 units, they also have some requirements for surface parking spaces. Yes. For non-residential, it also goes by whether it's enclosed or not, and less than 20 spaces, an L3 outlet is encouraged, but more than 21 or more spaces, a L3 outlet is required. So, yeah, kind of the same deal with the AMP service and the breaker requirements, and certain percentages of the surface parking spaces. So, yeah.
And for La Crescent, they require this regardless if the project has public funding, which we were doing some research because there was some issue with the Department of Labor and I think it was the city of Minneapolis in their EV parking requirements. They were being challenged by that. So I'm not sure. But right now, and we can expand our approach, but we were looking at just the green building code and focusing on publicly funded.
I think that's smart. I think that's a really good place to start, just to kind of get our ducks in a row when we have them in places that we can control the environment of it and the how they're run and how they're maintained and all that stuff before we put them places we don't frequent. I think that's a smart idea.
I know there's also some challenges with requiring them in like underground parking areas with fire. Fire is concerned about the batteries and fires, and so there's always challenges here and there.
Sure.
But I will move on unless you have any questions for Taylor.
Commissioner Redmond?
I have a comment, and I would be for, I think the idea of focusing on publicly funded first is great. It's a sort of a test run to a certain extent. I suggest for projects where they're receiving funding from the city or other, I think we should add a requirement that at least one actual charger, level 2, be provided. So, because these are great EV-ready requirements, just making sure that the construction can handle EV charging. But I think having at least one required charger where they're receiving funding would be worthwhile. And honestly, I mean, there's a lot of funding out there right now, so it's not very onerous, actually. In fact, quite likely they could find enough rebate and tax credit to probably pay for it, or at least take a large chunk out of it. So, and I would encourage us to explore having EV ready as a requirement throughout our entire code. But I understand this. Let's start with one thing here. That's good.
And it might be smart to look at places that have sales and population centers, maybe even, because I know we had one at the library, and I don't think it's not there anymore. Is that correct? Yeah, because didn't they take that one out?
I believe it was too costly to replace and get it up to today's technology.
Sure.
Something to do with that.
Okay. But I think it would be smart, how you can see where populations are located and maybe do something one per however many populations. So if it's a denser population, we can have more than one there, kind of thing, just for future ideas. And shopping areas, and maybe even require some of the places that sell them to have one open to public as well on their lots. Sounds good to me.
Well, I do know.
Or maybe they can sponsor one.
Nissan,
Yeah.
they have several charging stations. Is that what you meant by sell them?
Yeah, sell EV vehicles or something. Maybe even, like Commissioner Redmond said, I think there's probably funding right now, but if we get into a position where there maybe isn't, maybe we can work on maybe finding sponsorship, because we do have a lot of places that sell those. Might be nice to be like, hey, here's one from so-and-so. Not necessarily that you have to have a car from there, but
Yeah, they do let the public utilize it.
yeah.
And there's probably, and there's others too, other car dealers. Oh, my apologies. New phone, can't figure it out. There we go. All right, I'll move on with the presentation here. And I guess this kind of recaps what I already said. Just that the city adopted this code in 2013, and it's based on two documents, the 2012 International Green Construction Code, and then for residential projects, it's based on the ICC 700 National Green Building Standard. So these are, of course, international codes that any city can adopt, and you can modify the code and pick and choose sections that you want to include in your code. And again, here we are, we're reviewing for updates and then adding EV charging station and renewable energy requirements. And we're learning all this together, so welcome, because it is quite a confusing code. I really don't work in this code too often. You know, it's a building code, except for, you know, the portions that have to do with land use, like stormwater, things like that. So I really had to educate myself, and I did so just last week, really dug into this and figured some things out. So I want to share what I have learned. And I think this will be just kind of a good educational piece, so we all kind of know where we're starting from. So this Green Building Code, they update the international codes every 3 years. And since 2012, there have been 3 updates. So the code that's out there now that's most up to date is from 2021. And the code that Maplewood adopted was specifically the 2012. It did not say, you know, and future updates. So that's the code we are working with right now. So some of these issues that I point out, you know, might be resolved in the new updated codes. So since 2013, here are the buildings that have been constructed under the Green Building Code, most of them being City of Maplewood buildings. Our North Fire Station was the most recent that was constructed last year. City of Maplewood, the Wakefield Community Building at Wakefield Park, and then our South Fire Station, I think, was the first building constructed under the code, and that was like 2014 or 15 or something. And then there were 2 private buildings, and they were funded through tax increment financing, and those are the 2 apartment complexes on Frost and English. The one's called Villages, and then one's called Silver, which is a 55 and plus multifamily. And there's a few that are in the queue that we know have received tax increment financing, but there's always some issue. There could be some issue with like exemptions and things like that we'll touch on here. I just said that. Okay. And then I did talk to our building official, and he is fairly new. He wasn't around when this code was first adopted. Randy Johnson is his name, and I'd love to get him here to present his ideas on this code eventually. But I think he's only been here maybe a year and a half or 2 years, so he hasn't worked on it too much, except for maybe 1 or 2, maybe 1. At any rate, he said that here's a few of the issues that he has found. There's some areas of the code that are difficult to enforce. Within the Green Construction Code, there's requirements for a lot of different assessments and studies that are kind of ambiguous, and you know, you're not sure how to approach those with the designer. There's a requirement for this building life cycle assessment, he says can be confusing. He has found that the designers find that it's difficult to work with because many of them have not seen this code before. The city of Maplewood is the only city in Minnesota that has adopted this code. So, when people come here, architects and so forth, designing buildings, it's not something they've seen
I was going to say,
in Minnesota.
are we the only only city for any of these versions? Like, nobody's like adopted a later version of it or anything?
Well, just in Minnesota. I haven't
Right.
researched around the country. I'm
Oh,
sure.
no, I mean Minnesota.
Yeah, just
Okay, cool.
Minnesota. That I'm aware of, that we have found. And then architects are not, like I said, we're not familiar with this code. Like other codes such as LEED certification. And then developers express concern that buildings under this code cost more money. So then they ultimately, this has happened maybe once, I guess, ask for additional public funding to reduce the number of units so they can pay to make these types of green upgrades, is their argument. And this is what our building official has heard. So here is this exemption that apparently has knocked some of the buildings that the city has approved through tax increment financing out. And this is something that cities can choose. And I'm doing a comparison now of the 2012 and the 2021 codes. So on this exemption that says that buildings over 3 feet, buildings under 3 stories, residential buildings, are exempt from this code. And the city of Maplewood chose that back in 2012 for whatever reason. So there's been a building that was, 4 stories, 4 stories or less. Something with the height, and it was exempt. And then now in 2021, it's the same kind of exemptions that you can choose. So maybe this is something the city wants to consider with future upgrades to the, or I should say amendments to the code. And then I looked at the EV charging station requirements, and in 2012, there wasn't any. It just says, for buildings 10,000 square feet or more, at least 5%, but not less than 2 parking spaces of parking shall be designated as preferred parking for emission, hybrid, and electric vehicles. So that says nothing except mark it as this space is for EV cars. Don't park here if you don't have one. It doesn't even require a charging station or anything. So then in 2021, now they do have some language that the cities can choose to include in their code. For commercial buildings with 20 or more on-site vehicle parking spaces, sorry, a little space here, the developer must supply not less than 4% of the total number of parking spaces or not less than 8% of designated employee-only spaces to be EV-ready spaces. So again, this is focusing on the EV-ready only. And then for multifamily buildings, it's working on 10 or more vehicle spaces. Now, I'm not sure, because again, I'm learning along with you, if the city can add over and above requirements other than what the green construction code says. Like, we're opting into this, but we want to add this. And I'm thinking you can, yeah. So now on the renewable energy options in 2012, again, they basically had nothing. There is some language I found on roof surfaces that provide shade to parking shall, and it was only shade to parking because of our climate zone. We're in a zone that some of the zones required the whole building to have 75% vegetative roof or solar reflectance. But here in Minnesota, it was only the parking structures. And then portions that can be deducted from that are solar photovoltaic systems. So, if they had solar, they could reduce vegetative roof or there's solar reflectance on the roof, but obviously that's not a requirement. Then in 2021, we get some requirements here. Building projects shall contain on-site photovoltaic systems with a rated capacity of not less than, and I'm sorry, 2 watts per square foot, multiplied by the horizontal projection of the gross roof area over conditioned spaces and semi-heated spaces. So there is some capacity there. And I'm thinking, yeah, that is the end of my research and our learning together on this code. So we're taking baby steps here because we're all learning together. And I would thank you for your feedback to date here. And let me know if you have any other comments or feedback as we move forward here.
Commissioner Redmond?
Just on the just as long as we're talking about it, the PV requirement is really wimpy. For a 10,000 square foot building, it's 20 kilowatt capacity, which I think,
Oh.
well, I shouldn't say it's wimpy, but I think that is something that we should look in closely before we put something into our green code. Just because, and I think also the way it's worded is a little bit awkward. I do like the fact that what it's trying to do is by requiring a certain capacity, it requires a designer and a developer to think very carefully about what they're doing with their roof, what they're putting on the roof, where they're putting it, how they're organizing it. So I think in general it's really good, but I just think we should be careful about thinking through what minimum capacity we're going to require. So just conversational.
How about on the, as working in this world, how about on the EV ready spaces, or does that look a little?
Commissioner Redmond?
Yeah, I think that seems pretty good. I especially like that the multifamily buildings, they up it. That is a significant barrier right now in terms of EV adoption in multifamily, folks that live in multifamily. That's one of the significant issues. So I think that's a good idea. And the numbers seem reasonable.
And I do like that because we're starting off slow with EV ready and not necessarily charging stations yet, just to make sure that they're good, but we have charging stations being looked at for the city facilities. It would be good just to be ready so we can roll it out easier. I think this would be something that we should look at this year, but then also make sure that we have it on goals for next year to develop these areas, because you don't want to put all that money into it if you're not going to use it. Make sure that they're still relevant. Sorry. Commissioner Waits, sorry.
No, you're fine. So I remember in our last meeting, there was one or a couple cities under their programs that also had a mention of requiring when they do put in some type of charging station to build in conduits for future expansion. I feel like that would be something that might be valuable to consider. If they're already going through the cost of digging stuff up and putting things in place, might be valuable to consider that for if EV continues to take off. So.
And also for new construction, I guess I don't know what the rest of the code says, but is this retrofitting or is it just for new construction? Because there might be space in there to say that they have to have EV ready spaces for any new construction or new development or change.
Yeah, I'll have to do a comparison of, the Green Building Code does cover retrofits and so forth, but there's certain standards, like it has to be an addition of so many square feet or something, so I can compare those two, 2012 to 2021.
That'd be great. And to have the new building person come in here would be really helpful too.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of it is just learning, like you said. I appreciate all this work you're doing. It's awesome.
It's fun to learn.
It is. Maybe we should do for a layman, rewriting it so people can understand it. You know how they do that
It
for like
is
legal
challenging
things.
working with pre-written code, you know?
But, we can always make sure that it's clear when we put it in ours.
All right, we'll continue this discussion next month. Thank you.
All right, any new business? No new business. Visitor presentations? Hi, come on up. Please state your name, and are we still doing address? Do they have to do that? Or where they're from? Thank you for being patient.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
My name is Mark Bradley. I live at 2164 Woodland Avenue. It's just down from Maplewood Mall.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I'm Diana Longry, a lifetime resident of Maplewood. It's 1778 DeSoto Street, also a Maplewood business owner and a former mayor of Maplewood. And occasionally, people will call me up, and they have really good ideas, but they don't know exactly how to express them. And so the reason we're here tonight is that Mr. Mark Bradley has, I think, some really good ideas, and he's asked me to help him to communicate them to you. And it's actually interesting that much of what your agenda has been this evening dovetails very nicely into exactly the idea that Mr. Mark Bradley has. And it does have to do with the Maplewood Mall, which is just down the street from where he lives. And keep in mind, neither of us are engineers, so when it gets down to the technical details of how this idea would be implemented, we cannot tell you anything about how much energy will be generated or any of that kind of information. But it's about the concept and about the vision. Now, Maplewood Mall was certainly, as we know, was created at the junctions of 694 and White Bear Avenue. Is in a great location next to transportation corridors, wonderful spot. Since the facility's conception, the structure has been an attraction drawing medical facilities, multiple grocery stores, furniture retailers, warehouse stores, auto dealerships, entertainment, and many other retailers and restaurants. The Maplewood Mall, by its existence, increases the tax value of all the surrounding structures and the tax base of Maplewood. It acts to attract future development. Finally, it improves the city residents' quality of life by what it offers today and the potential it offers in the future for diverse and commercial choices. The mall acts as an attractive core for city development, whether business, entertainment, retail, dining, or medical facilities. However, like many malls, the mall is at risk as costs are increasing and retailers are finding it harder to compete against internet marketeers. To increase the viability of this structure, implementing novel and supportive programs would decrease the stress on the site. Mr. Bradley had two ideas on how that could be. One is to aid through the use of civic efforts such as the city or county operations having some of their facilities in the mall, but that's not the reason why we're here to talk to you today. That would be another commission. However, the reason we're here tonight in front of you is that another way to increase the mall's viability is to increase the viability of the structure. As I mentioned before, really dovetails nicely into Maplewood's green initiatives and being a green step city. The mall is an excellent candidate for an ecological conversion with the massive square footage of supporting roof, The building would be a candidate for solar panels. With the mall generating its own heating and electrical needs, the cost would be reduced for facility operation. The mall with its own supply would reduce the demands upon the electrical grid. In times of disaster, the mall could also operate as an island of support with its ability to function with its self-energy production and battery backup. We, of course, realize that the mall is privately owned. And so how would something like this even become a vision? Well, it would require the city to have a certain amount of facilitation and encouragement and outreach to the owner of the mall. But also, it could be implemented because there is money available. That the federal government is seeking a carbon-free future under the Inflation Reduction Act IRA that has committed $369 billion to clean power. Governor Walz has committed to 100% carbon-free by 2040. So we see that the city has that ability as the governmental entity to reach out to the mall ownership and say, let's partner with you in making the mall a model of being in a green city. The realization of a different mall that coordinates the functions between the mall and the city also encourages new uses for the building. Looking to the future, malls can act as a metro hotspot, supplying power and services in a regional area, not just a shopping area, but something more. Now, while the actual route of the Purple Line through Maplewood is in flux, its stop at the Maplewood Mall is not. The Met Council aspires to electric buses, and while they would not be in service immediately for the Purple Line, retrofitting the mall as an energy generator will support the future of electric buses and electric cars. Also, with the advent of autonomous vehicles, the possibility of unmanned vehicles shuttling customers to their destination and returning to the vehicle's port of origin, such as the mall, is also a very real possibility. And as an electricity source, the mall would be used to charge and maintain all these vehicles. It's like a hub, since we know that the buses are going to go there anyway. So as you see how it dovetails into all this. By their nature, most malls are physically large expanses of high drainable land that are familiar to local residents to reach. The retrofitting of the mall, such as the Maplewood Mall, as a self-generating energy source could create a center for commercial development in the good times, an emergency response location during the times of disaster or energy disruption. The city has to evaluate its assets and to aid in the marketing of these assets and helping them to realize how maybe they can capitalize on funding that's available for embracing the future. It is up to the city to plan for the future based on trends and scientific advancements. If it were, this is where the future of the Maplewood Mall can be. We ask that you place this concept on a future agenda, research the money available, and challenge the City Council to make this one of their visions. Mark, did you have any other comments you wanted to make?
Well, we have our packet that we should hand out, but I was going to add some, preface some other points on it. First of all, this is a new paradigm that we aren't really aware of up until now, that we've actually transitioned by the manufacturers themselves who are making the new vehicles, that they're going from gas to electricity. And even such companies as Rolls-Royce and I believe it was Ferrari, have now made electric vehicles their predominant unit. So what you're looking at right now, we're behind the 8 ball on this already because we're going to have to adjust to the high demands. And you got to realize this is a pilot program. If it's functional in the mall, we have other large surface areas that can also apply, such as the Menards building and any of the dealerships that are up and down 61. And they can supply the power to somebody else, including Costco that's right across from the St. John's Hospital. We also have, I believe it's River Run, which is on the other side. So those have Birch Run. I get the name wrong. But Birch Run also has a nice flat roof. Those are two good sites that could do a lot of generation after the fact. But you have to start with a pilot program. So this is a pilot program we'd like to do, and I think it would actually go across state after the fact. But we would be the pilot and substantiation of how it really could be functioned very fast and really change it, because you got to realize that you no longer have to use as much of the oil or coal or even nuclear. And I'm not a very good fan of nuclear, I'll be honest with that. But the reality is that when you look at it, with the pilot program, we're saying that we can generate a lot of energy that we haven't even thought about at this point. And because it's a pilot program, it's only the beginning, not the end. And you can think of all the other buildings that can be, including the two grocery stores that are in Maplewood, which would be the Comm and the Hy-Vee. They have nice, large roofs.
Yep, I love where your head is thinking. I really, really love this. I do want to bring up a couple of things. The thing you're talking about would be called a microgrid. Unfortunately, within city limits, I'm assuming it's still this way. Xcel Energy won't allow you to make your own energy. You can only do backups, and it wouldn't be able to do that unless it's their own microgrid.
Well,
It
that's
has
why
to go through.
I mentioned the pilot program.
Right. No, I mean, at this moment, I believe that you're not allowed to have microgrids within city limits, as far as I know, because Xcel says you have to go through their grid. So when the power's down, it doesn't matter if you have solar unless you have a certain amount, a percentage of backup for specific things. I know they're looking at microgrids on top of hospitals and on top of city and state buildings, because they could be their own microgrid and not be able to be hacked into, which I love your ideas with this. I know that I have 2 solar certificates, and we've looked into this, on top of universities and stuff like that, because they would be able to support and create energy. But at this point, it would still go through Xcel Energy, from what I understand. So it wouldn't be able to be a provider of energy for the neighborhood, but you could do something like community solar, which is wonderful, and that can provide energy for the surrounding community, and it can be wonderful. I'm concerned about the integrity of the roof. Having put in solar and been part of a lot of those things, as well as Commissioner Redmond, it would have to do with how old the roof is. Could it even support it? I know I take my kids to the mall quite a bit, as it is wonderful and safe and has the rain garden things. One of my friends designed that, not the rain garden, but the
Trellises?
Yeah. With the music and all the stuff that can be played through the rain. And I think there is wonderful opportunity for this.
It sounds like we have an opportunity here for perhaps some legislation to allow for more microgrids.
Yeah, the problem that I've seen with this so far is Xcel has someone already paid to go lobby, and they've made a majority of things. We'd have to get that part.
I would like to add
Yeah.
that, as we pointed out at the beginning of our presentation, we have support of our president and of our governor.
Yeah.
So those two would be where I think you'd make your application,
Yep.
so that they could open up the advantage to doing
Well,
something like
certainly
this.
their network.
Yes, no, it's wonderful. And I know that there are nonprofits, such as Fresh Energy, that are actually going towards legislation for these things. I really think that with your passion with this, I think that, that's something we can maybe suggest or show our support for. I know if we're gonna do local legislation, we would have to go through, our stuff here, and I would love to, and I'm hoping that we can have this.
And the problem is us two as private individuals, we have no authority, we have no power, we have no clout.
Right.
And so that's why we're coming to the city, asking for the city to see what it is that they can possibly do to promote this as part of their green initiative.
Right.
And maybe it's just talking about it, you know, and maybe it's not actually being able to get the pilot program going. But talking about it, connecting with the right people that are in connection with the city government.
Yep.
We're just a couple of private
Right.
individuals.
Yep.
We can't go out there and do this work to make it happen.
Right.
But I thought that Mr. Bradley had a great idea, and we want to
It
bring
is.
it forward, hoping that maybe a few more ears will hear what his concept is. And while there might be some issues with the roof and the weights and whatever, maybe some of that funding in order to support those solar panels includes fortifying the roof. And so now the roof does support it. You see, it's all part of the funding and the
Or even
proposal.
shade for the parking lots.
Right.
Sure.
Like,
That's
that would be a
exactly-
huge
Right.
space too, and
Yeah,
that would provide
exactly. See, so-
less heat absorption as well.
Right, exactly. So it's
Yeah.
all a
But
matter of
like we were
discussing it.
doing with the pilot program, we wanted to do it limited because of, you get it too big, then they say, well, we can't do anything.
Right,
So that's why we
Right.
were starting small. And then number two, I wanted to point out, and that's what I did after she had done the full presentation, the desperation of the transition that's going to happen within a year and a half. Because you gotta realize, Ford just reduced the price on its Lightning truck because of Elon Musk has got a new truck coming online right now. So that means that you have, I think it's 6 different trucks that are being manufactured that are all electric vehicles right now. You're looking at a 24 electric cars that are out there right now that are being manufactured out there.
yep, and the
As,
strongest truck
certain,
is,
car manufacturers aren't even doing gas anymore. They've abandoned it completely.
yep,
And so you need to provide service
Right.
to those people. Yes.
Exactly.
yep, absolutely. I think that's a great idea, and I'm so happy that you guys came in and did this, because more people who talk about it is more people who are talking about it, and so I
Right.
think that's really smart. And I think that that's something we can discuss, looking forward, for this type of, investment.
Right.
Would be great, because, we are a leader, and we need to continue to look for these opportunities to continue to be a leader, and I really
Right.
appreciate it. This is
And it meets
amazing.
your 2 applications you're looking at as well.
Yep,
Now, Mr. Bradley has typed up some of our remarks here.
Yes,
So obviously,
wonderful.
everything we've talked about is not in this little page in here.
sure,
But if I could approach.
absolutely. I really appreciate you guys coming in. This is wonderful to know that there's people that are really interested in this way. But I do want to open it up. Is there anybody that has any other comments or concerns or questions for these wonderful residents? I think we're just going to take a look at
Yeah,
what
thank
she
you.
sent us really quick so we can make some notes. And
say, I don't-
Commissioner Brodnick?
I don't have nearly the level of educated comment that you do, but I think this is a really exciting and great idea. So thank you for bringing it to us, because just this kind of idea that, to know someone's thinking about this and putting all of this together is really, really exciting. And almost invigorating. So thank you.
Well, great. Well, that's what we want. That was our goal, to invigorate you. Take action. Thank you very much.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Is
Madam
there
Chair,
some contact information that we could have in case we have any other questions?
Okay, my telephone number would be.
Actually, we'll wait and you can write it down. I don't know if having it be on, yeah, we can just have it written down so it's not to everybody. We don't want a whole bunch of people
My
calling.
number's everywhere, so it
Yep,
doesn't matter
yours
to me
is.
if I publish it again, what the heck?
Yep.
I'll have Mark write down his number here and perhaps your email
Because maybe we can look
address.
into this a little bit more and then contact you again, or if we have some of the building code people come in or whatever.
You know, there may be opportunity during the federal funding and cities getting, much of it will be filtered through, you know, the local governments in grants and opportunities to work with businesses and multifamily properties and residential. So it's taking those types of ideas and understanding where the need is. I do know that we worked in the past on kind of some solar outreach that we did when we received a Metro Certs Clean Energy Resource Team grant. And we did the top 30 solar sites. We worked with Pale Blue Dot to identify those sites and then notify those property owners, which included the Maplewood Mall, of the capacity of solar that is feasible on their roof, and then tried to show them, you know, all the different types of funding options and make it a little bit simpler for them.
I would
And
like
I-
to also add one last thing.
Oh, come on over here.
Okay.
Thank you.
We want to all hear you.
If we're having problems with the physical Maplewood Mall itself, because of, it would be the owners of that, remember that you have 4 structures that are attached to the mall, including one that's closed called Sears, that all have their own ownership. I could see Sears even doing it with nobody in there, just to improve its marketability. So the fact is, looking at this pilot program, and like I said, it's a pilot program, you're looking at the fact that it will then get you at least kind of equal to what's going to be happening within a couple of years with the electrification of your mobile movement.
Yep.
So
Wonderful.
those 4 buildings, and like I said, if we can't do it with the mall itself, we do have other large roof facilities, but you have to have a justification that says that it's been done somewhere. So that's why I figured we start with the mall.
Yeah, that's great. I love this energy. It's so wonderful. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Anybody else have any questions right away, or we'll give it some time so we can go through everything and kind of look it over, and I'm just really appreciative of you coming in. All right. Are there any commissioner presentations? I think we're not having any of those today. And staff presentations.
We already touched on
Finwell.
this, but I just wanted to update you on the upcoming outreach opportunities, which of course is, clunky, sorry, is the, the Celebrate Summer event, which is July 26th, just next week. It'll be down at Afton Heights Park, and we'll be doing additional climate mitigation planning outreach. And then, of course, National Night Out, which is August 1st. And if you are having a party, make sure to go on the city's website, www.maplewoodmn.gov. I don't know what the backslash is, so just go on there and search for National Night Out. And then you will see, you could sign up and register your party, and then you'll be assured you have a visit from our police and fire and other Maplewood dignitaries, like us.
Yay. Thank you so much, Ms. Finwell. That is awesome. And Taylor Madison, correct? Miss Madison? Madison? Matheson. Thank you. Let me change that on here. Thank you very much. With that, it looks like, anybody got a motion for me?
I'll move to adjourn.
Commissioner
second.
Redmond makes a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Commissioner Lights makes a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. The Environmental Natural Resource Commission on July 17th adjourned at 8:06 PM.